Hey guys, how's it going? Clayton Motos here, and welcome back to the YZ450F project. Today we are putting back together the head. We just got the bottom end reassembled. We're putting back the top end components, and I just want to give you all a quick overview on how I do it and what to look for. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to be installing is a brand new Vertex piston kit. In here we've got piston and rings, wrist pin, all that jazz. So, of course, we got the piston, wrist pin and circlips, and a set of rings, some Vertex stickers, and some information cards. So, let's break into everything here. Inside here, we've got all the rings here, which I'm going to gap off camera just to make that faster for everyone. But to gap it, all you're gonna do is take the cylinder, you're gonna take the ring, you're gonna put it into the cylinder, and you're gonna level it with the piston, or if you have a ring leveler, that helps too, but just take the piston in, put it flat like that, get it to a good point, and then you're gonna take a feeler gauge and you're gonna stick it inside that gap right there, and you're gonna look for the recommended gap that was on the card that I just threw away. So I'm going to do that off camera though to save you all that horrible pain of watching that. So I'm going to go ahead and get the piston installed onto the crankshaft. So the first thing we're going to do is take the cylinder piston here, and since it's going to be installed this way, we're actually going to flip it around, and we're going to put in the first circlip in this side so that we only have to worry about one when we're actually putting the motor together. So to do this, you're going to hook this edge into the groove there, and then you're just going to push with your thumb up and in, and you can kind of lift with your other thumb too, that helps, and you're just going to kind of click it all the way around until it goes in. Okay, so we've got that guy situated in there, and now we can go ahead and take our wrist pin here, and with the top end components, you never want to use assembly lube because the clearances aren't made for it. So you're just going to take some motor oil, you're going to rub it all on the wrist pin and inside of the hole there, and then make sure you install the arrow pointed forward, set it down on there, and then you're just going to slide the wrist pin through into there, and then you just have to do the same procedure with the circlip. The only difference this time is I'd recommend taking some rags and stuffing them inside this hole, because you will drop it at least once, and if you don't do this step, then you're going to drop it into a place that you can't get it back from. Next, you want to lube up this skirt here and around the side of the piston now, so that you don't move your rings too much when you're putting everything together. And then again, with the rings, you want to soak them in motor oil, and you kind of want to lay them out in the order that they're supposed to go in. I always put in this oil strainer ring first. It's really a matter of preference, but yeah, we'll take care of that now. I'm going to go ahead and put up on screen a picture of the orientation that the piston rings need to go, and while y'all are looking at that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So if you're unsure on whether a ring is the top ring or the second compression ring, a good way to tell is to just take the ring and put it in one of the gaps, because the top compression ring will fit only in the top gap. It won't fit in the second gap because they're at different thicknesses. Okay, so after you've got all the rings gapped to where they're supposed to be, it's time to put on the cylinder. This part's going to be a little bit hard to show on camera, but the basic idea is that you want to, well, first you should install the dowels. Okay, so with some anti-seize on there, you're going to just put the gasket on here. Make sure you put the piston through it. Make sure it goes around the dowels. That, like that. Okay, and now it always helps to have two hands, so I've got you on the tripod, and I'm gonna have camera girl help me out here with putting this cylinder on. The first thing that we're gonna do here is apply a thin layer of oil to the cylinder wall. Put the cylinder over this adjuster, and then camera girl's gonna take over holding it for me. She's gonna hold it up like that, and then for each new ring, I'm gonna compress it, and she's gonna drop it over that ring. After you get the bolt installed in the other side, you want to pick up the cam chain and rotate the motor over. It helps to have somebody push down on it for you. No, if my stand didn't try to run away from me, that would make it a little bit easier. But it rotated, and we're good to move to the next step. After that, you can leave your Kickstarter on or take it back off, but I have a separate video for this, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. And next we can move back to the head. So now that I've got the head over here, I'm going to go ahead and install a new O-ring on this water jacket. And then I'm going to go ahead and slide this into its place. Make sure you twist it when you put it in, and then take your little Allen bolt there and put a little bit of blue Loctite on it. And thread it into your hole and tighten it down. The next piece of this puzzle is going to be putting the valve train assembly back together. So the first step here is we're going to take all these little plates here, and we're going to drop them into their holes in the head. And then the next step is going to be installing your new valve stem seals, which for the exhaust side are just going to be these little gasket pieces. They have a little gold retaining ring there, and you're just going to take them, put them in a cap full of oil, and take a pair of needle nose pliers and grab those exhaust ones and drop them over their channels. Don't worry about pushing them on too tight right now after you set them on, because then you can just kind of take your finger and push them down over the thing, because these ones go on super easy. It's the next ones that are the troublesome guys. So with the intake side, you have these little brass ones that are a little bit trickier to deal with. So you're just gonna kind of set them over where they go. And then you're gonna take a 7mm deep well, and you're gonna place it right over it, and then you're just gonna tap it until you hear the sound change to a lot higher pitch. The next thing I'm gonna do here is a brand new intake boot. I'm just gonna line it up over here with this cutout facing to the left. And take the bolts and put a little bit of Loctite on them and thread them in. Next step here is gonna be installing the valve train, which we can start with this exhaust valve here. And you're gonna take your same cap full of oil and just slick up the valve stem a little bit. Make sure you keep track of where each valve goes, and so you're putting the correct valve back where it goes. You slide it in through the back into its slot. And then, after you've got valve stem poking up right here, you're gonna take your spring, put that over the top, and then you're going to use the same process I outlined in the disassembly video, where you're gonna take the valve spring compressor and line it up. Camera girl isn't here with me today, so it's gonna be a little bit harder to outline this process. But basically, all we're doing is putting the top of this piece over the spring and then tightening up this end over here to compress the spring against the valve. Like that. So so we've got the spring compressed there, and the next thing that we're going to do is to drop in the keepers. I'm going to pick up one of them and try to keep it from flipping over. I'm going to drop it in the section that's the most open, and then I'm going to push it against the valve opposite of the way that I'm going to drop in the next one, and try to push it up into its retaining spot. And then I'm going to drop in the next keeper here. And after you get them both in, you can change how tight your clamp is here to try and get them to fall deeper into the channel. But you should just be able to back everything off, and if the spring doesn't come flying back at you, you did it right. So now I'm going to refer to my build card here as to what valve shims I need to put in the head. But all of my valves were in spec except for this one right here, which was pretty far out of spec actually. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall everything except for that valve for each one. Try to keep everything nice and coiled up. And then based on my calculations over on this right side, I need a 2.05 millimeter shim. So that's what I ordered. But I also ordered a 2.075 just in case the spike would like that a little bit. But we will see after we bolt everything up and try it out. So the next step here is going to be bolting up everything to the head. Again, I'm just going to use some acetone here and clean up the mating surface. And then you're going to take your brand new head gasket. You'll always get a new head gasket. Just like that. Place it. Let's rest it in place. And take a little bit of anti-seize. Put it on the dowel pin. Don't forget your chain slider here. If you can get your other dowel out of your head, that's usually a good thing. Mine was just a little bit stuck and I didn't want to force it and potentially scar it. So next thing that we're going to do is install the head. After your head is devoid of any oil, you're going to bring it over here, hold it at the top so you don't get any oil in it. Take your magnet, stick it through the head, pull up the chain, and then you're just going to make sure that you get over both chain sliders. Drop your chain at this point. Get everything a little bit open. There we go. Here we go, all the way around. So now we get into the torquing sequence. So to do the torquing sequence correctly, you're going to need some of this grease. It's designed to make your torque specs better, and the manual advocates for it. The first step here, you just want to take your head bolts and you want to put just a little bit of grease on them like that, and then you want to pick your nicest ones. Those are the ones you want to put on the outside. The 14 millimeter, you're just going to drive these in. Just not even snug. After you get those snugged up, you're going to take your torque wrench and you're going to torque them all to 22 foot-pounds. In a crisscross pattern. Okay, and then after you get them torqued up, you're going to back them all out. After you back them out all the way, you're going to apply some more of the grease to the bolt and the washer. After you got everything lubed back up, you're going to retighten the bolts, and then you're going to torque them to 14 foot-pounds. And then take a Sharpie and mark on the bolt and then on the head a continuous line on the inside of each bolt, and mark a location 180 degrees from there, and then find the halfway point, which if you're really want to be careful with it, you can use a sheet of paper and that'll give you a perfect 90-degree angle. But I've been doing this a while and I've got an idea of about where everything needs to go. Then you have to torque it in a sequence of going 90 degrees on all of them and then an additional 90 degrees to equal 180 degrees. For that kind of torque load, you're gonna want somebody giving you a hand or the engine mounted in something very secure. So I'm gonna go grab Papa Moto's. So got the head torqued up now, and we're gonna add a little bit of oil to this top end. If you're concerned about the Sharpie marks, you can get them off with just an alcohol rag. So the next thing we gotta do here is put in the cams. I'm gonna start with the exhaust cam. When you're about to time your motor, the important thing is making sure your bottom end timing is correct. So what you want is the line that comes just after the little H right there. Looking at that hole kind of off to the right. And then there's a line just past those. Right there. That's the line that you want to get lined up with the notch right there. After you do that, you just kind of fold your chain over and then you can put your camshafts in. When I'm putting in camshafts, I always start with the exhaust cam. The idea here is that you want to line up these dots, this one here and this one up here, with the places that they're supposed to be in the cases. So you want to line up this dot to the edge of this case. And the intake cam, you want to do the same thing. You want to line up the dot on the right with the edge of the case. Okay, and now you're ready to put the caps on, which you're gonna put in this little clip on the top. Little clip looks like that. Set that on the top like that. And you're gonna take the caps and they're gonna go right on top. You wanna push them down and start all these bolts. And you're only going to torque these caps to 7.2 foot-pounds. So after you get everything timed up and your valve clearance is checked, just make sure you write everything down on a note card or something, kind of like this, so you have all your information going. The last piece of this puzzle is, of course, the actual cap here. So we've got this gasket. Goes on like that. New spark plug. New spark plugs in there, and then the cap goes on top like that. And that's really all there is to it. Alright guys, so that's the top end video. That's really all there is to it. There's not a whole lot going on there. It's just a couple really important parts. But if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and I'll see all you guys in the next video.